Hey guys, we're ranking every Godzilla era all the way from the Showa Era all the way to the Reiwa Era. We're going to be doing a tier list all the way from S to F. Starting off with the Showa Era, I'll let my friend explain that, and then we'll rank it.
So, in the Showa Era, the Godzilla franchise is the very first era of Godzilla, starting from 1954, its inception, to 1975, where it ended. Now, in the Showa Era, it was a bit of a different time back in the day. They were still learning what to do with this character. So started off in 1954, where Godzilla was a metaphor for the nuclear weapons and terror of the nuclear bomb and how destructive it is. And then later on, after the 1950s came to the 1960s, King Kong vs. Godzilla, where it was finally seen in color, where the tone of the film decided to target a more bigger audience, which was children. So the Showa Era was more of the wackiest, campiest era of all the Godzilla films, and based on what kind of fan you are when you grew up with Godzilla, you could say the Showa Era was your favorite. Some say that they thought it was just too silly. So I would say that the Showa Era for me is not really my favorite because it gets tiresome after a while, especially since they have Destroy All Monsters. It's Attack All Monsters or Godzilla's Revenge from 1969. That one was a stinker there. So I'm going to give it kind of like maybe like a C,
Yep, and for the Heisei Era, it ran from 1984 all the way to 1995 and had a total of 7 movies. And I'll let Godzilla explain why it's such a good era.
Now, the Heisei Era was a reboot of the Showa Era. Now, the Heisei Era is kind of like this. The 1954 Godzilla movie is still canon to that universe, only every other Godzilla film after that does not exist no more. Now, the Heisei Era kind of continues off that. So starting in 1984, The Return of Godzilla, which is valid by some of the eras trying to represent. So each era is kind of like a reboot of each film. And right now it goes from like 1984 to 1995. And within that time, they showed the Heisei Godzilla, which is one of the most popular Godzillas of all time. When a long time people would say Godzilla, that would be the Godzilla that pop in people's heads, is the Heisei Godzilla. And eventually he did die in 1995 due to a nuclear meltdown in Godzilla vs. Destroya. So that was the first, rare times that he does die. Like in 1954, he died in 1995. So all in all, a really, really good era. Actually, one of the best. And also, is the Godzilla. They have a Godzilla movie that has Godzilla in it for 20-some minutes, over 20-some minutes, which is the most of any Godzilla film to date. So I'm going to give this one a S tier because this one is just a classic era.
Yep, and the Millennium Era ran from 1999 to 2004, and I gotta say, it was a bit of a shorter one, but it did have some good movies in it that I'll let Godzilla basically explain.
So the Millennium Era came after the Heisei Era from 1999 to 2004, as he said. And it was a kind of era for searching. They were trying to figure out who Godzilla really was at that point. So each film kind of was a standalone film. Like, people would mistake for Godzilla 1999 and Godzilla from the year 2000 to be the same movie. Well, actually, they're two different continuities. So that's what's kind of confusing there. But there's 2 movies that act alike, which was Godzilla Against Mechagodzilla and Godzilla Tokyo SOS 2002 to 2003. Now, these films are pretty good, I must say. Just a couple stinkers in there. Like 1999, it was not my favorite personally. It was just, they were really still trying to figure it out. 2000 was kind of cheesy to me, but other people like it, so I won't blame you if you like it. But, some of them, they were just trying to figure it out. And Tokyo SOS was kind of boring to me. But Godzilla's Final Wars was my favorite Toho film of all time. So even though that was my favorite Toho film, the era itself has to be taken into account. So I'm going to say this one will probably be A tier.
Yep, and now we go into what has to be one of the best eras, the MonsterVerse era. Now, this started in 2014 and is continuing on with, we just had Godzilla X Kong, so yeah, that was a really good movie, and I have to say, this one had 4 films of Godzilla. There is a 5th one if you really want to consider Kong Skull Island, but I wouldn't technically consider that. But if we're going down into the movies of the MonsterVerse, I just gotta say, there's so many good ones, starting off with the first one I've ever seen, Godzilla vs. Muto Prime and all of them. So yeah, I'll let Godzilla turn that over.
Yeah, the MonsterVerse is in our current American era. So that one is, I'm going to be biased here. I really love this era because this is what I started off with. I started with 2014 Godzilla movie, which a lot of people can agree that is a really good Godzilla movie to start off with. I mean, most people start with 1998, which I feel bad for you people who did. But like our generation, we started off with that movie, and I gotta say, I'm not disappointed with any of the MonsterVerse films. The only thing I want more of nowadays in the modern era is more Godzilla, which, by the way, there's another Godzilla's Kong movie coming in March 26, 2027, which is going to be a Godzilla-centered story. So now they're actually going to fix that problem. So I'm very happy to hear that. But all in all, this is a really good era, and some people disagree. Some people would agree with me. But I would say it's an S tier because it's what I started with, and there's not really any Godzilla film in that era that I would say could use some work.
Yeah, and then the next era we have is the Reiwa era. Now, it has 2 movies, or 2 films, however you want to call it. And it started in 2016, is still going on. And I've seen both those movies in those films. Shin Godzilla was a really good one, but also a very weird one. Because the Godzilla was would give you nightmares. So, yeah, that one was scary. And then the -1 was, people can argue, was one of the best movies, but I'm pretty sure Godzilla x Kong won that fight, because not only was -1 a good movie, though, it was pretty depressing for Godzilla fans.
Yeah, it was a little depressing when Godzilla died in the end, which, if Godzilla was going against humans, you kind of see that coming, like in Godzilla 1954, and Return of Godzilla, Shin Godzilla, name it. Anytime Godzilla goes against humans, he loses, and that's what kind of infuriates me, but anyway, back on topic. So the Reiwa era is the current Japanese era of Godzilla. There's the MonsterVerse and the Reiwa. It's the first time ever that there's 2 Godzilla eras controversing in one. So in the Reiwa, now, if all you guys in the comment section were probably saying, like, well, don't forget the anime trilogy, so really there's more than 2 films in the Reiwa. Yeah, we've taken into consideration, but those are not really movies. They're more like anime episodes. So I wouldn't really consider them movies per se, but I would give them an honorable mention that they are in the Reiwa era, but not necessarily a movie. Kind of like a show, but trying to be like a movie. It's kind of weird. It's like a hybrid, because like Godzilla Single Point is also in the Reiwa era, but we can't count it because it's a show. So that's why we're saying there's 2 films in the Reiwa era. So taking those 2 films, and it's kind of hard to rank it because there's not very many. But Shin Godzilla was really good. Godzilla -1 was great. So, but you got one problem. If you are counting the anime movies, those were awful, I must say. They were not that great. So, based on that handicap there, I'm going to give the Reiwa more of a, B+.
Yep, guys, and that is the ranking of all the Godzilla eras, all the way from the Showa to the Reiwa. Thank you guys all for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you guys in the next one.
Peace out.